right here. Okay, I think this is Paradox Diaries 5.3. So quick report in. I've changed my telemetry data to real-time recording, so I'm recording right now. So far, I've managed to capture a couple of different autonomic dual activation, sympathetic, parasympathetic situation. And earlier tonight, I was thinking through something, and it's right here. Now, actually, this is the same paper I was using to try to work on the satiric interaction model as figured in the yin-yang infinite, but whatever, that's fine. This is more interesting. So let's go through, and I'm just going to read these off and sort of talk through each point. And what I'm doing here is I've got this figured out. I want to make it a little more cache ready, so I can just pop into it. So I'm reciting it, and I'm technically rubber ducking it. So this is a report in, and the first thing is imagine your brain state right now. And when I talk about your brain state, there are a couple things I want you to think about. So on the one hand, your brain is using energy, ATP, other stuff right now. And the amount of energy it's using, along with how the rest of your body is interacting with the whole system, because you've got electrical waves all over, will make your brain either coherent or incoherent, spiky, stabby, or smooth. When you're feeling happy, guess what? Your heart aura, which actually exists, is going to be smooth. Same thing with your brain waves. All right, so whatever your brain state is now, that's what I'm talking about. But let me be a little more clinical. Are you sympathetic system? Is your sympathetic system aroused? Is your parasympathetic system active? What is the state of your internal body? If you were to sort of imagine, sort of like, is it shaking really hard and really spastically? Is it shaking rhythmically? Or is it sort of stopping and starting like it needs a reboot or something like that? That's your brain state now. Okay, so your brain state is trying to communicate out to give you an idea. So your brain is always giving you telemetry. Some of it you notice in the form of your heart changing up and down, depending on what you're responding to. But also it can be like little pressure. Also, have you ever heard of, what's it called? Oh yes, it's called pain. All right, pain is an obvious signal. Pain is not, you don't want pain, granted. But if you mask pain, you're basically ignoring a signal from your body. And what I personally learned is when I ignore a little bit of pain, especially when I'm doing deep flexibility, guess what? I tear muscles. And it hurts like hell, and it takes months to heal. So I respect pain as a signal. And in fact, what I try to do is I try to distinguish finer and finer the difference between discomfort and pain so that I can get closer and closer to figure out what the edge is. And that's kind of this sampling effect. So I go into a stretch, I go too far, ouch, I come back. Go into a stretch, my body is able to be relaxed. I go too far, my body tightens up. And then eventually I get to learn how to move really slowly so that I really don't I can get into much more discomfort and hold it by going slow. So my body's communicating out pain, electrical signals. If your body's quiet, if your nervous system is quiet enough, you can actually start to hear and feel some of those signals. All right, so now let's see what's the next one. So my brain's in a state. It's trying to figure something out. It's trying to pull in information and also see if anything's going on. So it starts to get in a signal from the outside, right? So like maybe my inside, my system, if you will, system 1 to system 2, subconscious to conscious, implicit, explicit, whatever. I just need 2 for right now. There's a third one, the thing that connects the 2, but right now I just need the 2. So the inner one sends a message to the outer one. And then the outer one, it's giving a response. The thing is, the systems are coupled electrically, both physically coupled as well as also there's interference, electromagnetic interference. So there's direct coupling and indirect coupling going on all the time. So there's always information coming back. The question is your conscious brain, your ego, like, are you just pissed off and scattered? Because if so, your inside brain sees scattered. And so then it tries to match scattered to other scattered situations. And all of a sudden, your inner critic shows up saying, oh, I know what this is. This is because you suck. Or, oh, I know what this is. This is because your hair's not right. Whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. If you happen to be looking at your fingernail, when your inner critic is going off, the inner critic is going to project its internal state onto you. And what I just said is very important. So your body has an existing state, the energy usage, you can actually look at the rhythms and so on. You can measure it electromagnetically. So when we talk about rhythms and vibrations and all that kind of stuff, the problem is it can sound metaphysical and mystical, and certainly it is, and everything's empty. But I mean, also from a Western perspective, it's measurable. You can see it, right? Just like you can see hysteresis on an oscillator. You can see an electromagnetic field around the body. It just exists. It's testable. So it's testable and falsifiable. So, whatever. So now my body has received a signal. My inner brain has received a signal, hopefully not noise, from the outer signal. And now it starts to match. And it could be something like, if I'm noisy, sympathetic. It could be something parasympathetic. I could have both activated. But now I'm trying to match the signal to existing patterns. So shapes, projections, what the brain then tries to do is it tries to take the existing state of the thing to which it's trying to communicate, your conscious brain, your ego, your asshole self, and then it's trying to then use that shape of patterns to find other shape of patterns, neurological patterns that match that. And so now all of a sudden, you're basically saying that because of shape recognition, your inner brain is going to project. But here's the thing. The less noise there is, the clearer the signal, the more refined the pattern is. So as you turn down your nervous system, as your ego is calmed, as you give your ego something busy to do, for example, what I'm doing right now is doing a lot of high-level processing. I'm not really doing anything right now because I've talked about this stuff enough that it's becoming just sort of cached in my brain and pattern recognition. Of course, it also might just be complete, crazy, who knows? But at the end of the day, I'm still shaking. I'm still going to sleep better. I'm still going to be relaxed. So this is a waste of time to nobody, as far as I'm concerned. So now, here's the thing. The fidelity of the signal, based on the noise of your brain, allows the inner brain, so your ego, the fidelity of the signal coming in from the ego, the higher level brain, into the system one or lower level implicit brain, is related to the emotional, mental, physiological state. It's literally waves, because you've got electromagnetic signals in your brain. You've got pulsing blood, changing of pressure, visceral tissues. So basically we're a meat unit. Right? And our meat unit has waves. It's medium, and the medium does have a huge effect on the way in which your body works, right? So, for example, my body has signal processing going top to bottom. It's pretty slow because it's biochemical. If I were made of fiber optic cable, it'd be a lot faster, right? On the flip side, fiber optic cables are well nigh impossible to repair. The body does a pretty good job of repair. So I'm trading one characteristic, speed, for resiliency. Now, neither one is right. If I want to do high stakes trading on Wall Street, I want to be as close to the market as possible. We know that whole thing's a scam. I know, whatever. But the bottom line is physics matters. Distance matters. But in the case of the body, resilience matters. So that's a pretty big deal. And also, if you think about it, so talked about the body's always sending out probes. In fact, it's doing this all the time. So the brain sends out signals to see, hey, are you doing it? So you can feel sometimes, if you're really calm, you can feel your brain sort of doing body scans. Like, for example, sometimes you can feel pressure in the jaws. Yeah, no, yeah, no. And if it keeps getting, there's not too much pressure, then it's going to say, well, I'm going to stop doing all this. I'm wasting time. It's energy inefficient. And your jaw lightens up. And that sounds metaphysical. No, it's actually a system with a double governor, too hot, too small, too hot, too soft, basically conserving energy because it's energy efficient. And how do you know it? Why is it energy efficient? Well, if it weren't energy efficient, it wouldn't have reproduced, right? So after enough generations of reproduction, certain kinds of efficiencies are imperative in the structure of the system. So we have a multi-level response system, right? We have, sympathetic, parasympathetic. That's pretty instantaneous, and you can tune that. Then we have things like chemical changes, short-term chemical changes. If those short-term chemical changes last long enough, they turn into epigenetic expressions, possibly. And then if you have enough consistency of an epigenetic expression, it can go up. And that's one thing. And I think talked about it a while back. Let's see, I don't have this link anywhere. One form of epigenetic expression is actually, I think it's called myelination, where the physical double helix of your DNA gets stuck together or somehow somewhat altered so that when a program is run, okay, let me back up for a second. Your DNA is a bunch of slots, and there's lots and lots of them. And the pointer to a program, like I need chemical X, is always here. But if you physically change the shape of the DNA through myelination, you get a different expression. That's one form of epigenetic expression. Another, actually, in between there, I believe, is the mitochondrial DNA shifts up and down. So basically, if you go into high stress for a while, it's going to move to a place where it's more easy, basically a local caching of easier to get, for example, cortisol, because it's closer to that place where it can produce cortisol. By the way, I don't know if it produces cortisol. It doesn't really matter because all the words are empty, but the structures are the same is what I'm talking about. And really then the medium, meat, air, void, has an impact on, say, the speed of transition. So from the previous state to the next state. So it takes longer in meat than it does in air, depending. Distance also. There's lots of characteristics that have an impact on the overall signal processing and so on. But if you think about it, from here to like my next mental state is kind of like where I'm at now, and also the space I have to look at things. And the space is kind of, so if you think about your brain as having a certain amount of capacity, like RAM, for example, or whatever, noise is a bunch of applications taking up space, or ads or something like that. As you get rid of the ads and you remove the programs and you clear up the space, not only is it quieter, there's less things to look for because there's just less cruft. And when you start doing that, your brain actually starts to notice these patterns and it compresses them. This is a neurological pattern. I'm not making this up. And that compression has thermodynamic. It releases heat and electrical magnetic forces. And it just so happens one of the venting places is on the left side of the brain around the ear. So, the mystical meets the signal processing, meets the metaphysical. And if you think about it, so at any given point, my body is sending out probes into the void to see if there's a signal or not. My senses are doing a probe into the void outside the body, in quotation marks, air quotes. That was more for AI than for y'all, but no one's listening anyway. And that sort of self-similar process keeps happening over and over again. I mean, you can almost think of a person metaphorically, not really obviously, but as like a galaxy. And, I impart some kind of side effect in interacting with you and vice versa. The reason we don't, interact necessarily in the same way as galaxies is because mass, speed, structure. But at the end of the day, metaphorically, it's kind of the same. If you look at the strength of relationship within the body and outside the body, right? I mean, and if you think about the body, I don't remember the number, but your DNA, whatever you consider your DNA, is only like a third of the mass of your body. You know that? This is a community of communities. Your gut biome has a direct impact on your psychological relationship to food, personal lived experience. I'm telling you, this is a thing. I'm not making this up. So if you want to change your gut biome, add some greens. You'll find that your sugar cravings possibly start down. It really depends on how much noise there is in your system and whether you can start to notice those signals. But personal experience, I like sugar and I get into habits where I have more and more sugar. And as much as I love sugar, sugar is bad for you. It's just full up. It's bad for you. Now, it's all about levels. If you have 5 grams of sugar, no problem. If you have 100 grams of sugar, you're going to spike your insulin unless you have some butter or something like that to back it up. So if you're going to have some bad habits, you need to have some good habits. One of my good habits is I try to have a salad smoothie, depending on where I'm at, daily, a couple times a week, whatever. I literally take an entire salad, blend it up, and then I drink it. All right, I have no idea how long I've been shaking. I'm going to check the time real quick. Yeah, okay. So that's probably about 12 minutes. Now, I've been talking a lot and I've been gabbing, so I'm going to do a quick body scan. I'm a little sore in the back, just a touch. I'm sort of relaxed, but I'm still kind of like, I think there's still, the best thing I can say is like I've got an outer layer of just minor tightness. It's not the same. So I need to sort of really I think part of it is letting my arms just drag, because what happens is I slowly loosen the muscles of my arm. And I can tell when my arms are ready because I start to notice the wave across the arm, as opposed to like if you notice, there's a little bit of movement down there. Let's see. So this is better. I need to do this for a while, because what I'm really doing is I'm doing micro PNF. I'm shaking my body, and in the shaking of my body, I'm kind of loosening everything up. So that's at one end. At the other end is when I'm in the side splits, and I stay in it, and I'm just sitting in discomfort until my brain's got, okay, dude, chill out a bit. Right? That happens too. So there's a mirror-like or fractal nature to reality. And what gets down to is there's a certain constraint on the shape of things, if you will. And then two different shapes interact because, square is different than a rectangle. So just the nature of their shape. So if you just sort of think of the one metaphor, shapes sort of describe that two things are different shapes just because they are. I mean, that thing right there is my timer, and that's a brick. They're just different shapes. Now, they happen to be similar, so they're both rectangular, they're three-dimensional, and they take up space somehow, but they're not the same. Or they are the same depending on your perspective. It all depends, and that really is emptiness, right? So whether I say two things are the same or different is kind of perspective. So when I talk about the body as a metaphor, when I talk about the body as a galaxy, as a metaphor, what I'm really saying is you can think about that as one way to model it. And now, here's an interesting side effect. Most galaxies have a huge black hole in their center. Right, that's just the thing. Now, there's more than one, but there's at least that one, right, Chesh? Am I getting too close to the truth of the nature of our black hole nature? So in Chinese, actually in Tai Chi, we have the lower dantian. The lower dantian is 2 fingers below the belly button and in. So basically, it's the reproductive organs. This is called your one point, your singularity, right? And in Wu Qi, when I'm in standing Wu Qi, I'm trying to be perfectly balanced between yin and yang. Stop it, Chesh, please. All right, I'm talking. And I know you're talking too. I'm sorry, that was rude. Here, let me give you pets. Dude, I'm going to pet you. Anyway, so the lower dantian is a 1 point. Its metaphor is singularity. So in your body, your lower dantian is your center of gravity and your singularity. And what we're doing is, when we're trying to work with Wu Qi, we're trying to align our body so that our ligaments and our bones are optimal for our body structure. And the more you can loosen and relax your body's structure, the easier it is to get into that position. And if you're tight in the chest, you'll do something like this. If you sit a lot, maybe you're going to do something like this. Maybe you'll pull forward a little bit. And if you're pulling forward a little bit, then you have to use energy. So notice, the more I stretch my body, the more I reduce the energy required for me to get my body in a neutral or optimal position. And when I say lowering energy, ATP, right? I mean, if you think about it, your muscles have pull. If I have to work against them, I have to invest energy. The body doesn't want to invest energy. But if you can loosen them, then you structurally reduce the cost to do something. And actually, let me be more practical. After practicing this for a while, I went to a yoga class. I don't go to formal yoga classes anymore. I love them, I just don't do it. I don't have time. But I went to a yoga class, and it had been a while, and I was assuming I was going to get my ass kicked. And don't be. I mean, it wasn't easy or trivial, but it was surprising. One, because I wasn't expecting to have gotten so much more flexibility having done the stretching stuff that I do. But also, forget the stretching. Right? I know what the poses were like when I did them at the turn of the century, and I knew how much effort it was, and I knew how much concentration. And it's like, boom, I just could fall into the poses because my body wasn't fighting me. My body had less resting tension, less noise. As above, so below. When you turn down your nervous system, your brain can do much more efficient processing, just like my body can do much more efficient yoga-ing. And really, there's no brain-body separation. It's just slightly different representations, slightly different mediums, so slightly different constraints, but there's still shapes and shape relationships. So I think this little last burst of shaking has finally done it. Tonight I need to get sleep. So as much as I want to stretch, sometimes sleep is more important than stretching. But I did want to get a reading. I wanted to make sure I sort of shook off some of that resting tension. Good night.